Hey there, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the 704 High School Highlight. My name is Jeff Taylor. I'll be your host for this podcast every single time we do it. And listen, it's a part of Bahakel Sports, which I'm proud to be a part of. We're doing some great things. We're trying to become your home for high school sports, and that's really the reason we did this. And of course, every week or every time we do this, we're going to talk about football. We're going to talk about baseball, all the sports that are out there, and we're going to have a guest every single time we do this, whether it's a player, coach, parent, athletic director, or somebody like my first guest, Daron Vaught, who was our play-by-play man for our Bahakel Sports High School Game of the Week. Daron, thanks so much for being here. I know you did the Game of the Week with us.
Yeah.
Let's tell folks a little bit more about yourself, because I know you do a lot more than just the Game of the Week.
Yeah, for sure. So as many play-by-play people do, it's you sort of piece things together season to season. So my fall consisted of the Bahakel Sports Game of the Week, presented by Bojangles, which is just drilled into my memory now because you got to say it that way. But I do a lot of play-by-play, High Point University men's basketball. I do a lot on the ACC Network Extra, the digital ESPN platform for them, and a number of sports, you name it. I've done the NCAA regionals in women's gymnastics for ESPN3, awesome. The ACC track and field championships for ACC and X. A lot of baseball come springtime. I do the Durham Bulls as sort of their number two play-by-play broadcaster as well, and a lot with USA Baseball, which is based, of all places, right here in North Carolina. It's in Cary, North Carolina, the National Training Complex for USA Baseball. So, it's a lot of things, right? You just piece a lot of stuff together, and it's the best job in the world, man. And the Game of the Week was no exception. It was a blast.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Our first one was back with the kickoff weekend, I think, at Memorial Stadium.
Yeah,
if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, and we did 4 games in 3 days.
I think so, exactly. Because then we had, I think, Providence and 8K. So yeah, a little rough at the beginning, but just talk to me about being a part of that and how cool it was, and maybe where did it rank in terms of you've done those higher echelon things, but you got to be proud of what we did.
100%, and it was cool for me. I sort of skipped. You talk to people who are in this and call games, and their beginnings are usually, okay, I was sitting atop a rickety press box doing high school football or middle school football or whatever, just to get a start and to get reps. I played sports in high school, so I didn't have the free time to do this, and a lot of the times the games that I would have liked to have called, I was playing them.
Right.
So I didn't get my start until I was in college, which was sort of my version of this, right? I went to a Division III school at the time, Emory and Henry College in Virginia. So
I went to Randolph-Macon.
Yeah, we've established
the ODAC.
The ODAC ties. So that's a version of sort of the rickety small time broadcast, right? Because for me, I was doing it on student radio, men's and women's basketball, and we eventually, when I stopped playing baseball at Emory, started doing radio broadcasts for the baseball team, and I was a part of those as well. But I never really did a lot of high school sports, so that's what's been cool about this is sort of being at this level for the first time consistently in my professional life. But man, the high school football is so good around here,
and the crowds. It's kind of crazy. I mean, the atmosphere. And what was cool for me was seeing the journey that we took at Bahakel Sports in the Game of the Week, where at the beginning nobody knew us.
Yeah.
But by the end, people were coming up, going, "Hey, we love what you do." People recognize me, or they recognize you guys and your voices, or being out there on the field and seeing the signage. That was kind of cool to see that.
Yeah, and I think it's, as anything would be, right? You gotta get your footing underneath you, and we technically were still trying to learn how we were going to do this in the beginning, and a lot of credit goes to Mike Moore of NAS, who is the producer of this whole thing, and he really took this thing by the horns and turned it into something that by the end of the year, especially, I mean, it was special, right? Like I'm sure he would say the same thing. Mike would, I would. I've talked to Reggie Walker, our analyst, who I'll brag about the same thing. We're really proud of the job that we did, and we got to do so much. We did some playoff games that were close and really competitive. And
we had a few blowouts though during the year.
we had a couple. I mean, any football season is going to come with those. But I'd never done a football state championship in the state of North Carolina. We did the NCISAA state championship between Charlotte Christian and Providence Day. That was a thrill for me.
Right.
It's been a lot of fun. It was really cool, and I will brag on Reggie.
Talk to me a little bit about Reggie, because Reggie, his background and just a fantastic guy, but just where he came from, college-wise and stuff, and just the knowledge he has.
Yeah, first of all, super guy. He and I worked you do some of the ESPN3, the digital stuff, and you just sort of get random assignments. And I mentioned all the sports and platforms that I do games for. You just get thrown with random analysts a lot. No, I say random.
Sure.
They're just people you're not familiar with until 30 minutes, an hour beforehand when you sit down at the booth with them.
I actually did a game like South Carolina State and Furman, I think, playoff.
Yeah.
20 ESPN3. Literally got there an hour beforehand. I didn't know who the play-by-play or color analyst was, but by the end of the game, we had a little,
you're meeting a producer for the first time. Maybe if you see them in person, if not, you're
2 hours beforehand.
Yeah, 100%. So that's how those go. That's how Reggie and I met initially. That's how Mike and I met originally. Okay. Mike was brought in to produce an ESPN3 college basketball game. It was, I think, Charleston Southern at High Point.
Right.
And because they had shopped it out, there are the tiers, levels of games, they had shopped it out. Mike was the producer, Reggie was the analyst, and I was the play-by-play. We did not know each other. I guess Reggie and Mike knew each other because they worked at ESPN together for a time. But I did not know them prior to doing that game. And it was one of those things where you feel like you do a good job, you think you're enjoyable to work with, but Reggie and I kept up, Mike and I kept up, but it's not like we talked every day.
Right.
So then in July, I believe it was, I get a call from Mike about this package of games. He's like, hey, I need somebody to do play-by-play. It's going to be reliable. It's going to be like 14 or 15 games.
Right.
Here's the deal about what Bahakel Sports is putting into this. And I was like, well, did you call Reggie? Because Reggie and I did a basketball game, but for years he and I would text after that about how we got to get some football together, because he's a football guy. He played basketball, but he played football at Penn State. He's a sharp guy. He knows television, of course, because he was producer at ESPN. Right. He's got Emmys to show for that.
The pride he has is just, you can, every time you talk to him.
And he's been in these players' shoes. He's been in the coach's shoes because he's helped out. I think Metrolina he coached on their JV team for a year. So he gets it, right? Like, he knows the coaches around here. He understands it from the player's perspective. And he's essential for me doing a good job.
Right.
Because when we would talk to coaches, normally on Thursday mornings, we would get both coaches by phone. And you just walk into a conversation with instant credibility.
Right.
Right? And
which is huge.
It's huge for somebody like me because, again, I played sports, but a lot of the times, Jeff, these play-by-play people come into these production meetings, and we're kind of the nerds, right? Like, I'm asking a coach, okay, how do you pronounce this kid's name?
Oh, no.
You know what I mean? Like, I got to say it right. So I'm talking about the less fun things.
Right.
And then Reggie's like, what kind of defense you guys run? What's your
dives in.
What's your angle here? He dives into that stuff. Maybe I get a follow-up in or two, but mainly I'm hearing what he's getting out of it, and it's super productive for me. I can't say enough good things about Reggie, and by this point, I mean he's like you have. He's become a friend and somebody that I really enjoy being around. So, and Mike too. Damon Welch was sort of our de facto
the whole crew out there.
Engineer. The whole crew was awesome all year, and they kind of took their lumps early, like the rest of us did, and we turned it into something. I think we all are proud of, and hopefully it's
sky's the limit.
Hopefully it's going to be a staple for years.
I agree. The interesting part too was, funny note was, Bahakel Sports getting announcers each week to say that.
That was
the PA announcer. They're like, oh, what did he just say? And you run up to You run up to the to the press box and go, "It's Bahakel Sports."
There'd be Bahakel,
All kinds of.
We heard a
It
number
was
of mispronunciations.
It was all over the place. Well, it was a great year. So now, obviously, we turn our attention to championship weekend and 8 teams. And as I was kind of doing some research on all of them, we always talk about defense winning championships. At least you always hear that defense wins championships. And as I was looking at some of these things, I'm like, okay, these teams put a lot of points on the board. We take a look at the 1A. It's Tarboro and Mount Airy. And I was looking Mount Airy went 14-1. And like their last few games, 58-0, 44-7, 62-0, 66-0, 55-0, 72-0, 57-7, 49-0, 35-17, and 35-6. That's some speed.
Yeah, it's been interesting because, like I said, I don't have a ton of familiarity with football at this level, or I didn't coming into the season.
Right.
Now, of course, I've gotten my fill and then some of the area's teams anyway. And each week when you would sort of do your homework on every team, watch film if it's available, talk to the coaches, that sort of thing, you come to find out that scoring points is a priority. Not that it hasn't always been a priority,
right?
But most teams are running some sort of spread offense, and it's very much a pro style look.
Yes,
air quotes, because they want to put up points, and some of the teams that we saw, like Independence, for instance, that was one of the best offenses in the state. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say.
And shout out to DJ McFadden. Yeah. What he's done with that program is amazing in the 2 years he's been there. And when you talk about Independence, even though they didn't get to the point they wanted to be, just what a fantastic year.
Yeah, and it just goes to show, like, look, we had some really good teams on the schedule with really good defenses. Reggie and I called the game, it was Mallard Creek at Huff. Maybe the game of the year, 13-9.
Yep.
There wasn't an offensive touchdown scored. And we walked away from that game thinking, either of these teams could make it.
Right.
And, had things panned out a little bit differently, it's so nuanced, right, whether a team advances or not. They certainly were capable. But it gets you thinking, okay, maybe the lack of offense in certain scenarios was maybe what did them in, right? It's just it's not like it used to be in a team like that with such a dominant defense. Mallard Creek had 2 pick sixes in that game.
Yep.
And they played great defense all season long.
But
if you can't put points on the board, man, like it's going to be really, really tough to win.
So Mount Airy plays Tarboro, I think is what we said. You know a little bit about Tarboro.
Yeah. So it's funny. I've had like at least slight brushes with just about every region of the state in my career. When I was producing a statewide syndicated talk radio show, the David Glenn Show, we would have state champions on. So their coach, Jeff Craddock, was on a number of times because they've won a number of them. And Todd Gurley, formerly of Georgia and the LA Rams, played at Tarboro and was a superstar. Right? He was amazing at that level, as you can imagine. So Craddock would come on and talk. I think when the Rams were in the Super Bowl and Gurley was with them, maybe, or maybe the Rams were playing at the Panthers or something like that. For whatever the occasion, we had Craddock on to talk specifically about Gurley too. That's a winning culture if you're ever going to find one in our state. So I don't, because they weren't in our we didn't cover a team out there. I don't know a ton about them, but I know this, man. They're going to play hard. They're going to be fast, and they're going to be
disciplined.
They're going to be they're going to be tough to beat. They're going to be tough to beat.
Yeah. So the 2A is we have East Duplin and Reedsville. Once again, didn't know a whole lot about either one because they were, of course, outside our deal. But looking at them again, East Duplin 14-1, and once again, as I looked at their schedule, they had to have averaged well above 50 points a game, and were giving up less than 6 or 7. I'm starting to see a trend here. It's these teams that, okay, we're going to play offense and we're going to play defense. And just, they just go out and I don't know any other way to say it other than smack people in the mouth.
Yeah.
And so good for them. But then you take a look at their opponent, which is Reedsville. Yeah, you're talking 1, 2, 3, 4. I got my notes here in front of me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 7 state championships.
Yeah.
Since 2002. 9-2 in state. They've gone to 11 games since 2002, and yeah. So anyway, that's crazy.
I mean, I basically am going to say the same thing about them as I did Tarboro. Like I know the pedigree that's there, and that makes it a very, very tough program to bet against in these situations, right? Like if they're good enough to be there, chances are they got a team that can win the whole thing. And it is interesting though when you deal with high schools, it's a bit different because obviously these kids haven't been there or weren't there
Right.
in 07 or whatever year you pick out
Right.
that Reedsville won a state championship. So it does, the variability is there on a year-to-year basis that I found that to be pretty interesting doing these high school games this year, sort of the unpredictability. You mentioned the blowouts that we had.
Right. Who would have thought? Right.
We did our best. We picked really good games that were hyped up to be pretty competitive.
I go back to Porter Ridge and Hickory Ridge, I think.
Yeah.
And I thought Porter Ridge was undefeated at the time, and I thought Hickory Ridge would give them a game. And it was like 40-0 Hickory Ridge at the half.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what?
We had, I'm trying to think of what maybe the worst ones were. We had Butler in a big blowout win. Maybe that was one that we sort of expected. I think it was East Meck.
And it was, okay, so like for me to do my stories and to do my live shots for WCCB and stuff, I'm figuring, okay, I got 45 seconds. That's like 3 touchdowns or something.
Oh, yeah.
Butler East Meck, I had that in the first 6 minutes. I literally put my camera down.
That was the one first snap.
Right.
They
fumbled
for a return for a touchdown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I think they blocked a punt.
Yep.
So literally 4 minutes into the game, it was 21-0, and it was, I want to say, Daron, it was in the 60s at halftime. It was close.
I'm trying to remember. I think Butler ended up with 69.
Okay.
Maybe they were 62.
That's what I think. It was 62. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
They called off the dogs.
Right. And even then.
Yeah.
But, kudos to, and we'll go back to it. We'll get back to the playoff stuff in just a minute, though. But, the one thing I saw in these games, though, is, you have coaches where you're getting blown out, but the kids aren't quitting.
Yeah.
The coaches are still coaching. And the other team has enough respect, which is cool when you see high school football played that way. They're not going to put up. I mean, Butler could have easily put up, triple digits.
Yeah, and I think what's compelling about these games, even when they turn into those blowouts, Butler was a team that was very much looking ahead to the brackets that you're holding there, right? Like they had their minds set on postseason football. Therefore, you want to build some depth. That was pretty early in the season, so Butler took that as an opportunity to put in some fringe guys in terms of a starting lineup and get them snaps and plays that I'm sure lent itself to their development going through the rest of the season. And it's just every school like that's been there before.
Right.
There's a mentality that sort of makes good use out of any situation.
Right.
Which again is the compelling part. And for Reggie and me, for instance, sitting up in the booth, we can speculate as to what's Brian Hales thinking
right now
when he's got a second stringer in the second half. That's where Reggie comes in handy, where it's like, okay, well, what's he looking for, right?
He's looking who's going to get him to the championship next year.
Yes,
how he's building that program. I mean,
or when we've seen this happen before, starting quarterback goes down with an injury, you don't want to take a hit in terms of potential and prospects of winning a championship.
Right.
If something like that were to happen, you want your backup to have been there before.
Right.
It's and to be clear, the backups on these teams are well equipped, right?
Ready to go.
They're the guys that are going to be the guys next year or 2 years when the Bahakel Sports Game of the Week is in town.
Right. Cool. 3A. As we roll on here, Northern Nash against East Lincoln. And I was going over the notes yesterday, and I'm learning more about schools.
Yeah.
But Northern Nash beat 71st. I'm sorry, I don't know who that is. Do you know?
It's in Fayetteville.
Okay, I had no. I'm like,
I know that because.
And my apologies to anybody out there who may be. I just didn't know, and I'm like, I grabbed my kid yesterday. I'm like, Nate, hey, it's Northern Nash beats 71st. He's like, wait, what? And I'm like, okay.
I believe 71st Academy is what it's called, or referred to as in full. I know of it because I used to do play-by-play for William Peace University.
Okay.
Men's and women's basketball.
Got it.
Division III school in downtown Raleigh. And at the time, the men's team had a player, a star, that came from 71st. So and it's one of those things that you only know it if you've seen it. Yeah.
But I'm looking at Northern Nash, and same thing we talked about. I'm looking at their score. I mean, they went 15-0, but once again, I don't think they had a game. Well, they had a couple in the high 20s, but of course then they were shutting people out or whatever. But still, the 40s, the 50s, and stuff like that. Okay, so on the other side of the ball, East Lincoln. Once again, I didn't know a whole lot about him, but John Treach, who works at WCCB with me, he went out there this past Friday night. He said he thought it was like 10, 15,000 fans, which I guess is not surprising. But hey, 15-0, why would you not?
Yeah, and that's the fun thing too at this stage of the season. You see a lot of clean slates or a lot of undefeated records. 15-0. I know that's going to be the case at the 4A level too for both teams. And what I guess East Lincoln is technically, if you have a rooting interest for Charlotte area teams,
right?
I mean, it's kind of our last hope, which is bizarre because I thought really that we were going to have a team at the 4A level for sure between the numbers of great teams that we covered on the Game of the Week at that level.
So let's talk a little bit about 4A, and we're talking about New Bern versus Grimsley. And, when you talk about New Bern, another team 15-0, putting up 40, 50 points, giving up less than 14, another recipe for success.
Yeah, both 15-0 teams. New Bern is one of those teams that they've been here before. They've had really good teams in the past. This one is no different. But Grimsley, I mean, look, they took out, 3-4 Charlotte area teams on their way to this point.
Yeah, they kicked off with just beating Davie 69-37.
Yeah.
Then they turned around and beat Charlotte Catholic by 12. Then you talk about beating Independence, who had put together a great season.
Yeah.
44-36.
Sort of ahead of schedule too, though. Like Independence is going to be there again.
I agree. And then but the one that got me though was against Weddington. 28-27 missed extra point.
Yeah.
And for somebody who kicked, I just felt so bad. I mean, it just stings. And for Weddington to end on that note, I hope the kid is okay because a kicker doesn't lose a game. Let's be real. That's what I always heard was a kicker never loses a game.
Yeah.
I remember one time I missed an extra point and the coach was like, "We didn't score enough points. Yeah. Our defense shouldn't have given up that much."
Yep.
But anyway, when we talk about Grimsley, I mean, they're the 1 seed and they're there for a reason.
Yeah, and again, they've sort of dashed all of our hopes all postseason long of trying to get a Charlotte area team in that game. But as we began this package of games, Reggie and I started to pay a little bit more attention, closer attention, especially at the 4A level, to teams across the state. And I'll say this, from beginning to now, Grimsley's been like the it team.
Right.
It's been them and then other really good teams that you get into the conversation of, can this team win a state championship? Right. It immediately goes to, all right, well, could they get through Grimsley? And Weddington was the team that we had become most familiar with. Right. We saw them the most by the end because we did a couple of. We saw them like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Because we did. Let's see, we did Weddington and Providence Day was our week 2 game. Right. We saw them early,
right,
and they got trounced by PD, which of course they ended up winning their state championship, and it was a really good team. But Weddington had come a long way
Right.
since the beginning of the season, since that point, right? For that game, they hadn't even really figured out who their starting quarterback was going to be on a regular basis. I'm going to shout out Knox Willingham while we're at it, because that dude lost the quarterback battle, went to his coaches, said, I want to play, I want to be a starter, I want to play every down. And they put him at defensive end. And he was twice, Jeff, in a 3-week span. He was our Bojangles player of the game when we did a Bahakel Sports Game of the Week, because he affected the game both offensively and defensively.
True team player in every sense of the word.
An amazing, amazing player at this level. That being said, Grimsley is really good, because to beat that Weddington team with the way that the Warriors had developed by the end of the season, to beat that team, whether it's by 1 or 21, whatever, you got to be good.
Right.
So no, that one should be an
interesting
fun
game. Yeah. And the cool part is, for everybody out there, we are actually going to show them all live on either WCCB or MeTV. So we'll get that on social media and stuff where you can watch those games, but we're going to show all 4 live. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So let's move to our last little bit of two more things. Obviously, one of the cool things is season's wound down for a lot of kids who are going to get another opportunity to play something called the Queen City Senior Bowl. It is Saturday, December the 17th. It's their 4th year doing this. And I think they have well over 80 players from right here in the Charlotte area or the surrounding areas. And, and we're going to cover it.
Yeah.
We are covering it, which is going to be awesome. It'll be on Bahakel Sports. And, just to cover that, that's awesome. But when you look at the roster, we've seen a lot of these kids. And you know what? There's some talent. Let me just tell you this. I think 50 kids who played in last year's game are now on college rosters.
Yeah.
And the cool part about this, even during the practices, which start next week, they've actually had college coaches and scouts come out and offer kids scholarships on the spot. So it's a cool deal. And they do some reading stuff. They're having a parade and a reading day at the Metro School next Friday, and doing something there. So just all around a cool deal. But the players get a chance to shine.
Yeah, I'm excited to be a part of it.
I forgot about it. Yeah, you're in the booth. I'm going to be on the sidelines.
Yeah.
So,
and we'll actually work on a broadcast together. So that'll be fun with Matt Morrow and Stan Norfleet with me up in the booth as analysts. You're on sideline. That'll be a lot of fun. This is the first game of this nature that I'll have called. So I'm excited to sort of get the all-star game feel, right? It'll be fun. There'll be a lot of different players out there, like you said, most of whom we've seen this season and are familiar with.
A couple you're excited to see?
Yeah. Zymil Patterson.
I mean, we're excited to see all of them. We're excited to see all of them, but
of course. And they're all really good players as I'm looking through the list. Just the ones that jump out. I mentioned we saw Weddington more than any other team. Zymil Patterson is such a great athlete, kick returner, slot man as a receiver. So that's fun. I talked about that Mallard Creek defense. There are a couple of guys from that defense that are going to be in this game that excite me a lot. Ishan Abdul-Ali, Jamil Muldrow is going to be there in the game, and then Jaden Bowden is the other one. And Muldrow and Bowden both, I think, had multi-interception games on Bahakel Sports Game of the Weeks. So a couple of phenomenal talents. Jack Schultz I saw from A.L. Brown. We just saw him the once, but I was definitely impressed by him. I saw he's on here. Juice Jones from Butler.
Yeah, Juice. One of my favorite names.
Of course, yeah, right. Joe Reddish from Independence. Mentioned Providence Day, one of their great receivers. Jaden Holler, and then tight end / defensive stud Liam Gruel is going to be in it as well. I mean, it's a great list of names.
No, one of the kids too, Logan McIlvain, plays at Providence, defensive back. I coached him in Pop Warner, so I've had a chance to see him grow and grow as a player, and I know how excited he is. So it's just a great opportunity, and kudos to that whole crew who's put this together, because it's a phenomenal deal.
Well, and Matt Morrow and Stan Norfleet, again, they've been around for the first 3 renditions of this, so they've got some vested interest. They've got some skin in the game when it comes to this showcase. I like it because their priority is getting kids noticed
Right.
by coaches
Yep.
who may have, and it's
Slipped through the
a
cracks.
Senior Bowl. It's guys who may have slipped through the cracks. A lot of these guys already have offers, but it gives them another opportunity to put their talents on display, and that's something that we tried to key on most of the season with the games of the week. We would ask coaches, hey, do you have a player that you feel is maybe a little under the radar? Right? How can we help, right? If that player, I mean, we're not embellishing by any means,
No,
but if they tell us, hey, I wish player X would get more looks, and then player X makes a big play,
We can.
we're going to say it, right? We're going to mention.
We got the medium to do it.
Yeah, 100%. So that's part of it is having this platform, but like using it, right? To get kids in the area noticed and prop up the programs and the coaches and the players.
So, thanks for being here, number one.
Yeah,
I just greatly appreciate it. It's been a cool way to start. I want to finish it with kind of a hot topic.
Okay.
And it really goes to what we were just talking about. So, in terms of high school kids, high school seniors. And one thing, too, I want everybody out there, I'm brutally honest, so I just let it fly. And this is a great great opportunity to do this with these hot topic type deals. The transfer portal.
Yeah.
It opened up. And, I was at the ACC press conference with Dabo and Mac, and they were talking about the transfer portal, and Mac was like, I'll have, a kid play Saturday, and by Monday he'll be gone.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I never have. And I guess the gist is I've seen kids, work hard to get to where they are, to take that next step. And granted, if you are a stud, and you know what I'm getting at, there are kids who they're going to go to Alabama's and they're going to go to Georgia's and they're going to go to all of that because they're that good and stuff. That kid that was worked and is on the fringe of getting a D1 offer or whatever, it's just being taken away. And I understand college coaches want to, hey, we'll get the experienced kids. But where does it leave these kids? And I don't know your feeling. I don't like it. I never have. I think it's to me, it's taking away the energy and enthusiasm for those kids who want to go to the next level and play.
It's like anything, it's nuanced, right? There's give and take. I love the idea of the player empowerment. I think some of the rules that they initially put in place to be a little bit more lenient with transfers, their hearts were in the right place with that.
Right.
Then it sort of spun out of control, right? Because you get players who, and look, I don't know, maybe time will tell. We need a greater volume of them to understand, okay, this percentage of transfers works out well, right? And it turns out in the end it was a change of scenery that was needed and it was a better fit for the kid. The problem is, while everyone is trying to get that change of scenery is the perfect fit sort of thing, like you said, it sort of undercuts the players who know where they want to be.
Right.
And know where they want to be for 4 years.
Right.
And know the path they want to take to earn a spot in a starting lineup or whatever. So it's sort of self-eating in that way because so many players are doing the transfer thing and coaches are buying in on the transfer thing, and they'd rather have a player who has spent 2 years at whatever school as their starter rather than the sophomore or junior that they have who's been there at practice every day and just hasn't started in that scenario. So it's sort of, it would be easy but also sort of lazy to say, well, you can have it both ways because it's becoming less possible to have it that more conventional, traditional way.
And I go back. I talk about the high school kids maybe not getting their shot. And I'll end it with this. So Deion Sanders moves to Colorado, and I don't know if you saw his speech to the players at Colorado,
encouraging them to get in the portal.
And literally goes, I'm bringing in my horses.
Yeah.
And these horses will run, and they will, win. And I'm like sitting there going,
including his son, who is going to be in competition at least for the starting quarterback spot. Now, it's just it's straight again. It's there are layers. You don't want to admonish somebody like Deion for doing basically
No,
whatever
everybody
the
else
other
is
coach
doing.
does.
And he
Whatever
just
the other
says it.
coach does.
He
He's
just
just
says
saying the
it.
quiet part
Right.
out loud, right?
Right.
That's
God
the
bless
thing,
him.
That's the thing about the other
Right.
the other coaches is maybe they're just a little bit better.
Right.
Not being as blatant.
Right.
So I respect his honesty, and we all sort of know that. It's human nature. When you take over a program, you're going to want to put your stamp on it. It's the same thing athletic directors do with coaching positions. Coaches do it with quarterbacks or whatever position. They want it to be their hire, their placement in that role, for better or worse, because it's theirs, right? And they're there now to do a job, and they're going to do that job. So it's sticky. It's for sure something that college sports as a whole, as a collective, something is going to have to be figured out. Because there's a balance, right? There's a compromise. There's an in-between somewhere.
It's a fine line, though,
that
man.
we have not found.
Yep, exactly. Well, Daron Vaught, thanks for your time, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. This
Looking
was a lot
forward
of fun.
to the Queen City Bowl and see what happens next year. And for everybody who hung with us and listened to our first podcast and watched, thank you so much. We appreciate it. This is not going to grow without the support of you, so we appreciate that. Subscribe to our channel. Like the page. Comments down below if you have a guest you want me to talk to or a hot topic we need to talk about. Make sure you put that in the comments section. We'll get back with you that way. But until next time, be cool, and we will see you next time on the 704 High School Highlight.